If you don't have the skill required to achieve what you want, it's probably a matter of practice and willingness to make the mistakes. Because sure, if what you want is to nail it on the first try and never have to touch it again, you don't have the skills for that. Nobody does. Hello, Sunshine. Welcome back to the Neurodivergent Creative Podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin Fisher, and we are going to talk today about the difference between not having the skills to do something and not having the confidence to do something. And this came up this morning because one of the writers that I have in my writing incubator program, working title Writing Incubator, is my partner of 4.5 years. And he is self-identified as like a problem child. He is the type of ADHD that wants to have everything planned out with a little bit of perfectionism. And so he didn't feel ready to start writing until he had basically the whole plot outlined. Meanwhile, I am sort of more of a pantser and I'm like, no, just figure it out as you go. It's fine. That was not his jam. So we outlined, we workshopped, and he finally started writing. And then the other day he had a great idea and he's like, okay, I think I was a little wrong on this. I'm going to change it, which I do that all the time. I just did that to my own book coach today. I was like, so the plot is new. I hope you're ready and excited for my new plot. And what's frustrating, a little aside, what is frustrating is that we want the first attempt to be the done attempt, right? We want to get it right on the first try. And so when that first draft is first drafting, which means it is imperfect, it is messy, there are places where it doesn't make sense. There's spots that read more like you have left yourself bullet points for later. All of this is a normal, necessary part of a first draft, but it feels like we are phoning it in. We're not trying hard enough. We're not skilled enough to be writing this story, telling this story. But the thing is, all those books that you love started as a messy first draft. So it's really not about skill. It's about willingness to see it through. And that comes with practice, which is not what you want to hear. That comes with confidence, which you get through repetition and through seeing the process. I'm on, I think, the 4th rewrite of my novel idea that I had in 2020, right? So I've had this idea for 4 years. It has gone through several iterations and it gets stronger every time. It gets woven together tighter every time. There's some stuff that doesn't really make sense. I'm like, why would this character do that? And as I'm pondering it, I realized, okay, they wouldn't unless this other part of their backstory, right? And so now I have to go change the backstory. That's a normal part of the revision process. You find the gaps in your draft, in the narrative, and you fill them in. And this is also the same with any other creative pursuit. If you are a painter, I have a great example about me. I didn't really get color theory. And I watch videos of people mixing up paint colors, and I'm like, how did you use blue as like a skin tone shadow? Because I didn't understand how you could use color to like desaturate or add more saturation like to a pigment. And so now I'm seeing things like, oh, you don't just mix like purple with a little bit of white. And then if that's not quite what you want, you add like maybe a little bit of red. I have always been a very chaotic paint mixer, and I get the color I want by just smacking together whatever colors I have. I didn't understand color theory. And now that I'm learning more about color theory, I have stopped painting because I'm worried that I'm not doing it right. I'm worried that I'm not doing it with color theory. And that has really put a damper on me feeling like I'm confident enough and have the skills enough to create with that medium. Now, the advice that I need to give myself and you and my partner is that you just got to try, right? If I want to do color theory stuff, maybe I can go take a painting class where it will get taught to me in a way that I can understand it better than watching a 30-second reel of somebody painting something really fast. I can practice those techniques. And that's where the learning comes in. We are kind of primed to master our quality first before we go let ourselves do stuff and make things. But it's really quantity that begets the quality over time. If you are willing to just wing it and wing it and wing it and wing it, you're going to start noticing what works better, what does what you want it to do, and what doesn't work so well, and what comes out looking muddled or incomplete in some way. The same is true with writing. The same is true with music, right? You can just grab a guitar and strum on it and approximate a song that you like, or you can learn and fuck around with the chords and really learn how to play it on purpose. You can be self-taught at most things, cooking especially. Some things in cooking. So my partner, again, bless, he's a recipe guy. He likes to follow the recipe until he has kind of mastered it. And then he will start putting a little spin on it. Meanwhile, I grew up cooking, largely self-taught, but I also have an older brother who is a trained chef. So I learned a lot about cooking and operating in the kitchen from watching him and also from like him including me, which that's such a privilege to have somebody who really knows how to cook in your immediate family and teaching you how to cook. So I know I can whip up some stuff that has good flavors, based on what's in the pantry. Other people don't have that sort of what I would consider basic knowledge. And so if they don't have a component for a recipe, they think they can't make that thing, right? Like, well, we don't have oregano, so I can't make this marinara sauce. And I'm like, you don't need the oregano to make a marinara sauce. It might taste a little bit different. Maybe we'll put basil or parsley in it instead, but we can still make most of that marinara sauce, And some things you definitely want a recipe for. I have tried to wing stuff that did not come out, but I'm willing to do that because to me, it's not like I don't have any part of my identity tied up in, oh, that's a lie. I just lied to you. I do have a good portion of my confidence in the kitchen based on I make stuff, you eat it, you like it. I really like that. Which is why when I'm experimenting or I'm doing a vegan recipe for the first time, if something has tofu in it, I'm going to make that probably 2 or 3 times by myself before I let you eat it. Because if it comes out weird, I don't want you to be like, Caitlin makes weird vegan food. Because Caitlin makes awesome banging vegan food. I just need to perfect the recipe. Same thing with painting, same thing with guitar, same thing with writing. You practice, you make mistakes, you get messy. I think I just quoted Miss Frizzle. It's not a matter of I don't have the skill to do this. It's a matter of I have not yet practiced this skill that I am cultivating. And so I lack the confidence. And this is where my beloved partner comes in, is he told me this morning, he said, I don't know if I have the skill to write this story. And I was getting ready to, I don't know, putting clothes on to go walk the dog or something. I was in the midst of something. And so I didn't stop and coach him and say oh, let's explore that. Let's get to the root of that. How does that feel in your body? Which is something that I do when I'm in coaching mode. But I was in domestic waking up, walking the dog mode. And so I was like, you have the skill, but that's not enough, right? I need to explain why and how you have the skill. And that is from the repetition and from the willingness, honestly. Let's not even call it confidence. Let's call it willingness. Let's call it playfulness. Are you willing to play with your story? Are you willing to play with your characters? Are you willing to play with your guitar? Are you willing to play with paint colors? If yes, then you are set. You're basically solid. Because you're going to get better at doing these things when you are willing to play with them, to be imperfect, to be, I don't want to say childlike, but sort of childlike in the sense that children are naturally drawn to play and experimentation. It's the same way when we walk the dog, she wants to stop and smell new things. She's like, oh, what's that? I haven't smelled this before. Let me see if I can ascertain anything about the dog that lives here by the way that their yard smells, right? She's getting data. She's getting input. She's learning and experimenting and experiencing. Now, also, she is a dog, so she does not have to like go to work and pay bills. And I know that we as human beings are tired and busy, and developing creative skills, developing any skill, takes time and takes energy. Busy people don't have a lot of excess time and energy, especially disabled people. So people like to say, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. Like the concept of linear time, sure. Like I go from midnight to 11:59 p.m. just like anybody else. But disabled people, like I cleaned the bathroom this past weekend. And then the following day, I laid down for a short nap, right? And then woke up at 5 p.m. because my body was tired from the exertion of scrubbing every surface in the bathroom. I wanted to make sure like I really got in there because we tend to be sort of like surface Clorox wipe cleaning people. And I'm like, no, I'm getting the scrub brush. I'm going in. I'm getting every little speck of grime out of here. It's exhausting. I used to be able to clean like my whole apartment in 2 hours and then be like, hooray, I did that. Now I have the rest of the day off. Can't do that anymore. My body is fatigued. And that is like just a fact of my life. So I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in, I think, 2019. And one of the things I really had to learn was how to rest. My doctor was like, you have to stop doing stuff. You just have to rest. And so I wasn't working out anymore because when I did work out, I pushed myself too hard. And that's part of the fibromyalgia in the first place came from the like lengths that I would go to when my eating disorder was at its height to overextend myself and push my body to its limits. You do that enough times, your body changes where the limit is. And so I am now working on reconnecting with exercise that is fun and not just like, I have to check this off a list or else, right? And I'm going to talk more about that in the next episode because I want to talk about like maintenance tasks versus self-care tasks. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be great. But disabled people, as I was saying, had to find the plot thread and bring it back. Disabled people often have to take a lot longer to do the same thing that it would take an able-bodied person to do. So whether that disability is like ADHD, it just takes me longer to like plan and execute a task, or that disability is fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, where just the physical act of cleaning the kitchen, cleaning the bathroom, going to the grocery store, whatever, requires more recovery time than it does for an able-bodied person. Like these things eat up that time and energy that disabled people would love to be spending on practicing their skills and their creative pursuits and passions and hobbies that they want to do. So in that sense, even if you have not as much time as you would like, not as much energy as you would like, there is still that underlying sense of quantity that creates the quality. So if all you can do is lay in bed and like watch a painting class online or listen to a podcast about writing or about whatever your hobby is, that counts as putting time and energy into learning that hobby. You're not doing active creation, but you can still absorb and learn things. And especially as an autistic person, I find that when I have witnessed something with repetition, I can usually execute the skill better when I try versus if I just tried outright and hadn't like absorbed any information. I'm not sure if that is specifically an autistic thing or if that is how learning works for every brain, but it feels autistic to me. So I'm going to call that a neurodivergent thing where I can sort of, it's almost like I was doing the practicing as I watched. And I don't think that that would work with color theory type stuff, but it does work with like techniques. Like I have a painting where I have like aurora borealis effects, and I watched like several different examples of people painting them before deciding the technique that I wanted to use. And then I did it the first try and nailed it. And I was like, cool, great. Probably wouldn't have done that as well if I had not watched like several different iterations of that task and decided like which one seemed like it would suit me the best. So you can also spend time with other people who are doing that hobby or that creative pursuit that you want to do. You know, they say that we are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. I don't know if it's 5 people. I don't know if that is an accurate statistic, but I do know that when you spend time in community with people doing similar things to your goals and dreams, you feel closer to those goals and dreams already just by like being in that room, whether it's a physical room or a virtual room. So shameless plug for my group, the Neurodivergent Creative Pod. It is a free or $7 a month membership for neurodivergent creatives. There's like different benefits and bonuses if you join the paid tier. But you can get in, and we have a Facebook group and we have a book club and we're starting up a writing circle. Those are all available for free. And so if you are a neurodivergent artist, writer, reader, that's a space for you to come hang out with people who are doing the things that you want to do more of. And that's very powerful, especially when you have to like delegate and plan out how you're going to spend your spoons, your energy, your time when you have such limited capacity on top of everything else that you have to do. So all of that to say that if you don't have the skill required to achieve what you want, it's probably a matter of practice and willingness to be playful, willingness to make the mistakes. Because sure, if what you want is to nail it on the first try and never have to touch it again, you don't have the skills for that. Nobody does. Nobody has the skill for that. That's not how art works. So I will leave you with that, and I'll see you next week.